The elevator doors hadn't even closed before she collapsed against my shoulder, whispering my name like it was the only word she had left in her, and 3 hours earlier, she'd told the entire office she'd rather quit than spend one more minute in the same room as me. If you believe people can surprise you, that the person who hates you loudest might be hiding the truth in that hate, stay with me until the end. Hit like, drop a comment telling me you believe in second chances, share this with someone who needs a little hope tonight, and subscribe, because stories like this one deserve to be found by more hearts. My name is Daniel, and for 2 years, Elena Voss was the reason I dreaded Monday mornings. We worked at the same marketing firm, on the same floor, competing for the same promotions, the same clients, the same scraps of recognition our director doled out like rationed bread. She was sharp-tongued and relentless, the kind of colleague who could dismantle your entire presentation with a single arched eyebrow. I told myself I hated her. I told myself that so many times it almost became true. But somewhere underneath the venom we traded in meetings, there was something I never let myself look at directly, because looking at it meant admitting I noticed the way her laugh caught in her throat when she tried to suppress it, or the way she stayed at her desk until the cleaning staff arrived, long after everyone else had gone home to people who were waiting for them. That Friday night was supposed to be nothing more than the quarterly office party, cheap wine, forced small talk, the kind of event you attend because your absence would be noticed more than your presence. Elena had been drinking more than usual, laughing too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, and by the time the party thinned out, she was the only one left besides me, swaying slightly by the coat rack, trying to convince her fingers to cooperate with her phone screen. I watched her for a moment, telling myself this wasn't my problem, that we weren't friends, that she'd made it clear enough times she considered me an obstacle rather than a person. But something in the way her shoulders curved inward, small and unguarded in a way I'd never seen at her desk, made walking away impossible. I called her a cab, and when the driver asked for an address, she stared at me with glassy eyes and said she couldn't remember it, that her roommate would kill her, that she just wanted to go home. The ride was quiet except for her murmuring things I couldn't quite piece together, fragments about her father, about a promotion she didn't get last year, about being tired of pretending everything was fine. I didn't ask questions. I just listened, the way you listen to rain against a window, not expecting it to stop, just letting it exist around you. When we finally reached her building, she could barely stand, so I looped her arm over my shoulder and half-carried her up 2 flights of stairs while she apologized over and over for something she never named. Her roommate opened the door before I could even knock, a tall woman with tired eyes and a mug of tea in her hand, clearly expecting this exact scenario more often than she'd like to admit. She looked at Elena, then at me, then back at Elena, and something shifted in her expression, surprise, maybe, or recognition. She helped me get Elena onto the couch, murmuring thanks in a voice that still carried caution, the voice of someone protecting a friend from a night that had already gone sideways. As I set my keys down to help arrange a blanket, she studied my face for a long moment, the kind of look that measures a stranger against something they already know. Then she said the words that would rearrange everything I thought I understood about my life. "So you're the one she pretends to hate." I laughed, awkward and confused, assuming it was a joke born of exhaustion and wine. But her roommate didn't laugh back. She sat down across from me, glancing once at Elena, who had already drifted into the heavy sleep of someone who'd been running on empty for far too long, and she began to talk. She told me about nights Elena came home from work with her jaw clenched so tight it left marks, nights she'd stayed up long after midnight rewriting emails to me that she never sent, convinced that if she said the wrong thing, I'd see her as weak. She told me about the promotion Elena didn't get, how she'd cried in the bathroom of their apartment because she thought I'd been chosen instead, and how, buried somewhere beneath that disappointment, there had been relief, because at least it meant she wouldn't have to watch me leave the company for a role she secretly hoped I'd take, just so she wouldn't have to sit across from someone she couldn't stop noticing. I sat there, absorbing every word like rain finally reaching soil that had been dry too long, feeling the entire architecture of the last 2 years quietly rebuilding itself in my mind. Every sharp comment, every dismissive glance, every moment I'd catalogued as proof that she despised me, I began to see them differently, the way you might look at a photograph and suddenly notice the person you'd overlooked standing in the background the whole time. Her roommate said Elena had a habit of pushing away anything that mattered too much, that her family had taught her early that vulnerability was a currency people spent against you, and that competition, at least, was safe, because you could hide inside it and call it professionalism instead of fear. I didn't say much that night. I helped tuck a blanket around Elena's shoulders, left a glass of water on the table beside her, and walked home through empty streets, replaying every conversation we'd ever had, searching for the moments I'd missed, the small cracks in the armor I'd been too proud or too hurt to notice. Monday morning came, and I almost convinced myself to pretend the weekend hadn't happened, that returning to our old rhythm of clipped words and competitive silence would be easier for both of us. But when Elena walked in, pale and clearly bracing for humiliation, I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before, not defiance, not the practiced coldness she wore like a uniform, but fear, raw and unguarded, the fear of someone who suspects their walls have been seen through and doesn't know what happens next. I didn't bring up the party in front of anyone. Instead, I asked if she wanted to grab coffee before the morning meeting, my voice steady, offering her an exit if she needed one, but also an open door if she didn't. She hesitated so long I thought she might refuse, but then she nodded, quiet and unsure, like someone testing weight on a bridge they weren't certain would hold. We didn't talk about her roommate's words directly. Instead, we talked about smaller things first, the stress of quotas, the absurdity of corporate jargon, the ache of always trying to prove you belong somewhere. Slowly, in the space of that conversation, 2 years of manufactured distance began to dissolve, not all at once, but in careful layers, the way ice melts when it finally meets warmth it didn't expect to survive. Over the following weeks, our rivalry didn't disappear completely. We were both still ambitious, still capable of pushing each other in meetings, but something had shifted beneath it, a mutual recognition that the person across the table wasn't an obstacle, but someone carrying their own version of exhaustion, their own quiet war against feeling unworthy of the things they wanted. We started staying late together, not out of competition anymore, but because neither of us wanted to go home to silence. She told me eventually about her father, about how his approval always came wrapped in conditions, how she learned that being liked felt more dangerous than being respected, because respect couldn't disappoint you the way affection could. I told her things too, about my own fear of being ordinary, about the promotion I chased not because I wanted it, but because I was terrified of being forgettable. In sharing those fractures, we became less like rivals and more like two people who had been fighting the same invisible battle from opposite sides of a desk, mistaking each other for the enemy simply because it was easier than admitting we recognized ourselves in one another. Months later, at another office gathering, much quieter this time, she found me by the window, away from the noise, and told me she owed her roommate a debt she could never repay, because if she hadn't said what she said that night, Elena might have spent years hiding behind hatred rather than risking the terrifying vulnerability of being known. She said sometimes the people we push away hardest are the ones whose perception of us we fear the most, because being truly seen means we can no longer control the story we tell about ourselves. If this story moved something in you tonight, if it reminded you that the walls people build are rarely about you and almost always about the battles they're fighting alone, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need the reminder that second chances are real, that hearts can change, and that sometimes the person we think hates us is only afraid of how much they don't. Before you go, I want you to comment one word below, just one word that describes what you'd do if someone finally told you the truth hiding behind their anger. Elena and I still argue over deadlines, still challenge each other in ways that used to feel like war, but now it feels like something closer to trust, like two people who found, in the middle of professional exhaustion and personal fear, the rarest kind of second chance, not a chance to be perfect for someone, but a chance to be honestly, imperfectly known, and loved anyway.